Hey guys, my name's Jean-Paul Bourgeois. I'm a chef in New York, outdoorsman for life, but we got this beautiful whitetail hindquarter right here. We're gonna eventually make this into Boudin, a rice sausage that I come to grow up with throughout my, my childhood in Louisiana. We got this awesome field to plate wild game rub right here. We're gonna give it a good seasoning right now. We call that the hand of God. Just a nice little evenly spread right around there. Now I'm gonna be pretty generous with this because what's gonna happen with this hindquarter is that we're gonna throw it right on top of the coals and get it nice and charred and browned. And eventually this is going to go into oven, a nice wet environment with chicken stock, onion, celery, bell pepper. We're going to cook it for like 12 hours around 250, 270 degrees till it falls apart. Then tomorrow, that's when we can make our boudin. And boudin, like I said, is a white rice sausage, so we'll be mixing all that with some onions and bell peppers and garlic, some deer livers, which I'll show you later. But first, we got to make sure we got the right rub and the right pack right on here. So I'm going to give it one more little rub, make sure that's nice and coated, get it all in there. And now it's ready for the grill. And there it is. Fully rubbed hindquarter with field to plate barbecue rub. The key to making any great braise is great ingredients. So I got onion, carrot, and celery here. We have some chicken stock. If you got a bunch of whitetail bones or venison bones or any type of wild game bones, go ahead and make you a wild game stock as well. That's going to be perfect in this. But for boudin, I just want to really get that that meat coming off the bone. I don't really want a really extremely dark stock unless I'm making a red boudin or a roasted boudin or something like this. But we're going to make a venison white boudin. So we got just a little bit of vegetable oil here. It's going to go right in this pot. Now I'm going to end up cooking in this pot the whole night, and you can see that's really, really hot. And I do want to get a little bit of color. Just watch yourself when you put those onions in. Now I always like to put my onions in first because onions have sugar. And as those sugars get to caramelize in that hot oil, that's what makes that stock really good to braise in. You can hear those onions are just roasting nice and hard in that oil. All right, now that I see that my onions got a good bit of caramelization on there, those flavors are really starting to come together, those sugars are starting to caramelize. Again, that's what's gonna give all that good flavor to that braise. I'm gonna go ahead and start with my carrots and my celery in here. Now carrots also have a lot of sugar in it, so it's good to get a little brown on these vegetables as well. But you really want to make sure your onions, before you throw in your carrot and celery, are really hot and that pot's really hot so you don't knock down the temperature too much. And again, you're just going to stir this, and it's going to go for about 15-20 minutes, really on high heat, but watch it and stir. Some flames, some apparatuses might be hotter than others. Just want to make sure you can hear that sizzle. That's how you want that to stay basically this entire time. You'll see once this celery, onion, and carrot begin to cook and become to caramelize, they're going to come together and you're going to really start getting that sweetness coming off that pot. And that's when we're going to put that stock. But not yet. Be patient. Let those vegetables caramelize. Right here I'm going to throw in my bay leaf and my thyme. I love thyme and bay leaf. Thyme especially for any game or any red meat, period. You see it classically used in both French, Italian, and Spanish cooking throughout all their game meats in those different areas. So it's just a great ingredient. You might see that at your grocery store and wonder what that is. If you're cooking wild game, you should have thyme in the pot almost at all times. You can even pick it and make little leaves, but just as this, the stems have a lot of flavor. They're not really that edible. So once we cook this and once we pick the meat off of the bone of that whitetail, really want to discard the stems of the thyme, but man, do they pack a lot of punch in that braise. All right, at this point, all my vegetables are nice and caramelized. I got this beautiful hind quarter right here. You can see it's nice and brown from the grill. It's gonna go right into the pot right here, right on top of the vegetables. I'm gonna take all your chicken stock, and you just really wanna make sure your stock covers this meat. Just barely, just by half an inch or an inch. Now once your stock goes in there, it's going to deglaze the bottom of this pot. And what that means, all those little caramelization pieces on the bottom of that pot are going to come off because of that stock you put in there. So give it a hand, and I can just kind of move this meat around and just kind of scrape the bottom of the pot with your wooden spoon just to get all those little crumbly caramelized bits off the bottom, because that's really good flavor right there. And at this point, I'm just going to bring this braise up to a boil. I'm going to cover it with aluminum foil, and it's going to go in the oven at 275 degrees, anywhere from 8 to 12 hours, depending on the size of your hind quarter. So if you remember from yesterday, we started cooking these hind quarters. They were cooking overnight. Chicken stock, onion, celery, bay leaf, getting all good and delicious. We since have that finished roast, and you can see this roast is now just shreddable here. Look at that, it just falls apart in my hand, just like that. Right there. So we did most of the chopping here. This is what we're going to use for our boudin, but you can see you really want it to fall apart right off that bone, and then just give it a rough chop. Remember, for those who don't know what boudin is a rice sausage. You can make it from pork, you can make it from beef, you can make it from seafood. Today we're going to use whitetail here, and I know that some people are wondering, like, what can I do with those hindquarters? They got some really tough meat, some really tough parts right in that leg joints and everything like that. So, I mean, boudin was really created for this on-the-go snack. We usually put it in hog casings. We won't do that today. We won't put it in a hog casing, but it's really like this to-go snack. And it was meant to stretch out the pork that they typically use in a rice sausage, and rice was like their filler. So rice is the main part of cooking boudin. But whatever you put in it, make sure you can kind of just run your knife through it like this. You want it somewhat fine, just like this, and you can see how that just shreds, just falls apart like that. Just kind of run your knife through it. There's really like no method to this madness. Just make sure it's the right consistency. And that's good, just like that. And so once that meat is falling off the bone, you let it rest kind of at room temp or warm. You shred it off that bone, and then you can chop it like this. Now the other part of boudin that some people may be kind of squeamish about, but we're going to show you that it's a really great part of making boudin, is the deer liver. And you see that right here. I have a nice hot Lodge cast iron skillet getting really smoky right now. That's great. I'm going to take these livers, and what I've done, I've just soaked them in soda water or carbonated water. And what that helps, you just kind of pull some of that little extra blood and irony from that liver. I'm going to season it with salt and pepper. Some people like using chicken livers, some people like using pork livers, but we have this whitetail hindquarter. We want to use the whitetail liver as well. Salt and pepper here. You can tell it went pretty heavy on here. That's okay. Another thing to keep in mind is your braising liquid that you cook the hindquarters with. That's like super flavorful, right? It's got the femur and the marrow from all that femur bone in the stock. It's got all those beautiful vegetables in there. It's cooked this meat to perfection. It's delicious, and that's what's reducing right here. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to show you why in a few minutes on why I'm saving that. So right in this hot skillet, I'll take a little bit of vegetable oil. Now really be careful here because there's a lot of moisture in liver. And with a hot pan, I'm not looking to cook this liver till it's fully well done. I really want to cook it to medium rare medium, and I'm going to show you why that is. I'm not using a whole ton of liver because deer liver does tend to be a little stronger than calf's liver or even pork liver for that matter, especially wild game. But what I want to do is make sure I get a nice hard sear. So I'm going to just really rip that Camp Chef fire right there, make sure that skillet stays nice and hot and ready to go. And you can see that this liver is just going to get, I'm not going to really touch it too much. I'm not going to flip it. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of stuff to it. But what I will do is add crushed garlic to that pan. It's a nice little trick. I like doing it with the palm, with my kind of the meat of my hand right here and not with a knife. Feel like I have a little more control. It's just to crush that garlic, not pulverize it. That's really going to expose the inside of that garlic to that oil, and it's going to just flavor that a little bit more. Now I have some butter here. And right here, we all know that everything's better with a little bit of butter. So that goes right in that skillet as well. Your goal here is to create as much caramelization and crust on that liver as possible. We're not going to overcook this. We want it to get nice and brown. And really, once I flip it, I'm not going to cook it much more. And again, this is a really important part of Boudin because for those who have eaten Boudin around Louisiana, some like it more ricey, some like it more creamy. I like mine right in the middle. But that creaminess comes from the liver, and it comes from that liver not being overcooked. All right? So we really want to make sure that that just fries right up in that oil and butter. Again, I'm just ripping, really just kind of ripping this fire. I'm not turning it down at all. I'm really focusing on getting that hard sear on the liver. Really important here. You kind of move it around. If you think it needs more oil, sometimes you can see that butter just starting to brown a little too much. Add a little oil, and that'll increase the browning temperature of that butter by combining that oil to it. I'm going to pull out one piece here. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Wow, look at that. You see how browned and charred that is. Now from here, that's pretty much where I want it. And you can see that's really rare still. And all I'm going to do is flip it while the gas is off. So the gas is off right now. I've created a lot of caramelization. That butter is browning that liver really nice. I'm going to take that. This is where you want to be really careful. Just kind of give it a little shake. And so you're not really searing it like you did before. You're just letting that liver kind of coast through in that hot garlicky butter. That's what you want. It's still nice and rare. I'm going to take it out right now. It's going to carry over as well. Now I'm going to come back to that in a hot second. All right? I'm going to let that chill for a sec. Now, one of the also keys to making great Boudin is making sure all your stuff is hot. This rice just came off the stove 30 minutes ago. I have the stock, the reducing liquid from our braise reduced right now. It's going about a half to 3/4 of a reduction. So it's really fortified. It's got that saltiness from the rub that we put on that hind quarter before we put it in the braise. So that's really like going to be the source of a lot of our seasoning, a lot of our salt and pepper. So do not add salt or pepper at any other time besides this liver and as we put things together. Make sure you have a big bowl, all right? You want a big bowl to mix with. All right, now, while I still have a hot fire, I'm going to turn this back on, and now I'm going to add onion. Right in the fat, the same fat that I seared those livers in. Why am I doing that? One, I don't want to be wasteful. I don't want to go cleaning this cast iron skillet. And what's in that cast iron skillet is oil, brown butter, and liver juices from that venison. So that's all flavor that we want. Green bell pepper. This is about an equal parts onion to green bell pepper. And then I have some jalapeno and garlic that I mixed in. I didn't seed out the jalapeno. I like my boudin with a little kick and a little back end spice, so I'm gonna leave all those membranes and seeds in the jalapeno. This just goes in just like this. Again, not salting this at all, not worried about the salt right now. All I'm worried about is getting this nice and cooked and soft. Left the garlic in there because why not, right? That toasted garlic that got in with those livers, super delicious and only gonna make your boudin better. So at this point, I'm gonna keep cooking my onion and bell pepper and garlic and jalapeno till it becomes nice and soft. I don't really want crunchy vegetables in my boudin. I really want the rice and the venison and that creaminess of the liver to come out. And I just want that onion, the garlic, and the bell pepper just to be accents to that sausage. Really important that we just get this nice and soft and translucent. We don't have to cook it down for hours, but it does need to be broken down. All right, folks, we're at the pivotal moment of making boudin. I have my stock hot. I have my rice warm. I'm going to turn that down just a touch. I got my venison, my hindquarters picked. I got my livers seared. Everything's nice and hot and ready to go. Before we start putting together, this is where the livers come into play. So you'll see me, I'm just gonna kind of go through these just like that, and you see a lot of rareness in there. That's totally fine. Remember, everything is hot when I mix this. And you see, I'm not taking much care on how I'm cutting it right now. I'm really focusing on making it thin, because really what I'm going to do is just kind of keep and I just want to pulverize it really. And the more you can kind of cut this up and get it ready to go, the more it's going to mix into your boudin really, really well. If you're not a fan of liver and you don't like the ironiness of it, then just add less, right? No big deal. But this amount of liver to that amount of meat and that amount of rice is just going to add a great smooth texture to your boudin. And I promise you that's essential to making a good boudin. The only thing worse than no boudin is dry boudin. You do not want dry boudin. So the livers and the stock will really help with that. I'm just going to run my knife through it over and over again. And again, best to do this if it's hot, right? I mean, these livers are going to cut up a lot easier once they're hot. They're going to mix into that rice easier when they're hot. And then at this point, you could just kind of run your knife through it like this. You don't need to go to culinary school to make boudin. I know plenty of Cajuns throughout South Louisiana that graduated high school, went to college, and make awesome boudin. No need to go to culinary school for it. You know, it's really your favorite rice dressing that you ate for Thanksgiving, or, you know, that's what I grew up with, and it's not that much different from boudin, right? But boudin really wants that liver, and it wants that meat that you want to, you know, disperse throughout that rice. And this is exactly how I want those livers chopped right now. Now before they cool off, right, pivotal moment, you can almost see on my knife how it's starting to kind of like make this, it's going to kind of bind all that rice, right? You can already see that happening. So in this mixing bowl, in a large mixing bowl, I got some pre-cooked rice here. I just use nice white long grain rice. Follow the directions on back. I like a 2-to-1 ratio for this because it leaves it a little bit, you know, more wet than some rice you might eat for rice and gravy or whatever. But you can see it's just flaking nice. You can see the steam coming off. This is really important, all right? I'm gonna come straight from that cast iron skillet from the flame. I'm gonna go put all those onions and all that in there right now. All right, I like to put my livers in at this point because I want my livers to really start taking that heat from the rice and from the vegetables. Okay. Now we have a lot of meat here. This is from one hind quarter of a doe, and you can kind of see that. But since we have it, we really want to use it. Let's use it all, right? It looks really good. This is perfect for it. So I have this mixture all mixed up here. Now you can see that it's dry right here, right? You can see it. So I know I need a good bit of moisture in there. And really the trick here when you're making boudin is, yes, to have it all hot. Yes, you want it seasoned. Yes, you want your rice cooked and the liver's mid-rare, but you got to mix. And I'll spend maybe 10 minutes just doing this. And what I'm doing, because everything's still hot, the rice is breaking up, the starches are coming out of that rice and lending it back towards the whole farce of the boudin. It's making it creamy. With the livers and with the rice, you'll just make this. You can see how much liquid that's willing to soak up, right? It still needs to be. Pour the rest of it in there. Now again, so in one bowl right here, you have the venison liver, you have the hindquarters, you have white rice, you have onions, bell pepper, garlic. I'm just going to work it. I'm going to let the rice do its thing. I'm going to let the meat, once it's hot, because remember, that meat's shredded. It's getting all into that rice. It's getting all into that liquid, and it's creating. Now, it looks a lot like a sausage filling right now, right? For those who make sausage at home, if this was cold, this would be a lot of the consistency of a sausage filling. This is exactly what you're making, right? But when you make boudin, you got to make this filling hot, because this is how you get all those different flavors combined. You can see it has that wetness to it, right? Look at that. Nice sheen. You got all that collagen coming from this braising liquid. You have the livers giving all its iron and all that creaminess to this rice, and you got the rice giving it right back to the farce. And you can see I'm just going to continue to like really grip that spoon and really paddle away. If you got a KitchenAid or a kitchen mixer, go ahead and feel free to put that in the paddle attachment and mix that up. That works as well. You can see as I fold that. Now, the reason why this venison has to be cooked and tender and soft, and so you can get that little stringiness that happens in there, that actually helps bind the farce. This is looking really good. And I've been excited to cook this all day, and I'm really happy how it's coming out. Just want to continue to mix that, and you can see all that steam and starch and liver really combining there. At this point, this is where you really want to taste your boudin mixture. All right, so our boudin is mixed in the bowl. It's looking mighty fine right now. I'm going to give it a little taste. Okay, it's on the right track. What I like to say is it's got great bones to it, right? It's got a great foundation to it. So, but really, it just only need a couple little things. Tabasco hot sauce, salt, pepper, little parsley, and some green onions. Now, look, the whole time when I said don't season anything, this is the time, this is why, because it's almost there. It's got all that seasoning, that residual seasoning from the braising liquid in there. That's really what's flavoring this dish. It just needs a couple little pinches there, a couple little cracks there. All this green onion, you can really never cook with enough green onion, right? So I like to put all that green onion. My favorite hot sauce from Avery Island, good friends of mine, Tabasco. Now, Tabasco doesn't just, or any hot sauce for that matter, but Tabasco specifically, doesn't just add flavor. It's going to add that vinegar bite that much needed in this recipe because of how rich the liver in the venison is. It needs just the couple punches of vinegar to really help keep it light. And I like to just take See how I just did that parsley right there? Just ripped it right off. Get nice and thin. I like to bunch it up real tight. You can see I just kind of like roll it with my hand here. No need to be gentle. Now, I like parsley for a number of reasons on this. If you were my dad watching this, my dad would say, I'm not eating that boudin. I can't eat parsley. But he's an old man and he's picky. So I like to just throw it in there anyway and just tell him it's green onions and he never knows. And it always makes everything better. But what it does, it will add that fresh herbaceousness to your boudin. Again, you have a lot of rich components in here. You have that deep red wild game. You have that wild game liver. You have that starchy rice. And so just having some fresh flat leaf parsley right in that mix is going to just kind of bring it up and not feel so heavy and weighed down. You're going to just get some freshness in there. Now, as you've seen me work this batter, or work this farce, or work this boudin, I've gotten a good mix with my hand. But once I get the green onions and parsley in there, I'm really just kind of folding it in. I don't want to beat that up too much. I want the heat, the residual heat from that mixture to kind of cook, if you will, that parsley and green onion. But I'm not going to beat it up by pulverizing with that spoon. Now, I've added salt, I've added my hot sauce, I've added my herbs. I'm going to give it one more taste. It's so close. It's so close. A little more salt. I tend to like a lot of black pepper. And for those who are like, do I use table grind? Do I use butcher black? Do I get one of these and crack my own? Go ahead and crack your own, guys. I mean, it's going to really change the way you flavor things once you start using cracked pepper for everything. If you don't have it, grind is fine, but just make sure you got some black pepper in there. And for here, and another thing that just does is just kind of rounds out the heat. Remember, I have the jalapeno in there. I'm adding Tabasco. That's two different kinds of heat. That's like a fresh heat and a hot sauce heat. This peppercorn isn't necessarily spicy, right? But it adds a different element of heat. And as we continue to cook and use different ingredients, we're really trying to explore those different levels of heat and different ingredients that bring spice or salt or bitter or sour. And this is looking like spot on right now. Put this in a hot link on the way to the duck blind. Man, you can't ask for a better breakfast. Oh, a little bit more. It may look like I'm putting a lot of hot sauce in that bowl. There's a lot of venison, there's a lot of rice in here, and that's got to flavor all of that. And this is it, guys. So you can see from here, this is really the farce you want. You want it to hear that. You can almost like hear the sound of it, right? It's not too wet. It's not too dry. Everything's bound together. That's a good sign that it's not too dry. From here, if you wanted to put that in a casing, you let that cool completely. You put it in the fridge. You cover it with saran wrap and let that cool. And in your sausage stuffer, you put a hog casing and you would make a sausage just like you would any sausage. But tomorrow, I'm going to show you for breakfast how to do Boudin biscuits with sweet pickled jalapeños, and that's going to be the breakfast of all time. It's going to blow it out the water, and you're going to have a whole new appreciation for those hindquarters, for those livers, when you're gutting those does and gutting those bucks and what to do with them. Stay tuned, guys. Good morning, Mossy Oak family. My name's Jean-Paul Bourgeois, and we're going to start by showing you how to finish out these Boudin biscuits. As you can see, my boudin has chilled all the way. It's ready to get made into cakes. Now again, as you remember from last night, we were talking about boudin is commonly served in casings. But today, to make these little biscuit sandwiches, we're gonna just make little patties. And just like you would hamburgers or any type of little patty you might throw in the grill, make your little ball here. This is about 3 ounces, 3 to 4 ounces, and just kind of just work it. Just like you're making a meatball or like a hamburger patty, and ready to go on the griddle. We're gonna make 3 or 4 of them, and you can see I can just patty them like this and they'll fit right perfectly on the sandwiches. Reason why I like cooking boudin like this, because this is gonna, when that rice hits that flat top and that hot grease, that rice gets real crispy. And I like that texture, like kind of combination between the crispy rice and that crispy shredded venison and that nice soft buttery biscuit. Just add a little bit more here. Again, you want to kind of just pack that down. You can kind of see me just forming that in my hand, just like a little ball of dough. And then you can press it down into a patty. No big deal. Again, this can be done ahead of time. You could have made this boudin 4 days ago and then patty it last night so it's all ready for breakfast. One of the big keys I find when cooking breakfast is to get it all ready the night before. So when you can wake up in the morning, get your cup of coffee, and you can get to work and start cooking. Nothing better than a nice biscuit before a hunt. And a nice boudin biscuit after the hunt. So here we go. Make one more patty here. Man, it's just, it smells amazing. All that onion and garlic and green onion and fresh parsley and gaminess and richness from the venison and liver, it's all coming through even cold. So once that gets hot and on a biscuit with some pickled peppers, you're talking about something magical here. All right, so I got me 4 little patties here. Now you can do this on a cast iron in your home, or you can do it on a griddle like we have here. We got the griddle out today, it's nice and hot. Sorry, I got a little oil right here. Don't need a ton of oil. I like to just take my spatula on the griddle and just kind of give it a little. My friend Fitz right here is cleaning up my mess. You just want to gently press them down on that hot grease. Again, be careful. Don't put too much grease. Obviously, when you're cooking like this can splatter. Just watch yourself. Be mindful of how much oil you're putting on, and that this will really burn you. But right now, they're just kind of hanging out. So if Fitz will allow me, how you doing, Fitz? We're going to now cut these biscuits. Now, you can see these are drop biscuits. These are my favorite biscuits to cook at the camp because you don't need a lot of space to roll them out. You really just make them in a mixing bowl and scoop them out with a spoon or ice cream scoop or a measuring cup or whatever. Really anything you work, but it really creates this rustic kind of looking biscuit. This is 4-ingredient biscuit. I use white lily self-rising flour, Crisco, butter, and buttermilk. And that's all this biscuit is. Take 4 of them out. I'm going to get a nice serrated knife and just cut these right in half. Be pretty gentle with that. I think Fitz got him a venison bone from last night's demo. He needs breakfast too. And some of them crumble on you. It's okay. Just kind of keep going. And really when you're using a serrated knife, I like to tell a lot of people this, treat it like a saw or a hacksaw. Really let the knife do the work. You don't need a lot of pressure. The way a serrated knife functions is by action. So action front and forward, just like you would saw in a tree, or just really letting the serrated teeth do the work. Same with the biscuit. If you just press it in, it's going to crush the biscuit. So really use that saw action. And I'm going to just check these here. Just flip them one time. I'm going to let them go a little bit longer. So now that I've cut these biscuits, they're really ready for the boudin. You can see how nice and white and perfectly cooked those biscuits are. As my mossy oak friends could attest, we had a bunch of these for breakfast this morning with some jam. They go perfect with jam, perfect for biscuits and gravy. Even put pepper jelly if you want something a little more sweet and spicy in the morning. But again, these are great biscuits for ham and cheese, or of course, boudin. So we got them right here. These are probably ready to flip, and you can see, look at that. All this little crusty bits, that's all the venison really charring up, the rice charring up. That's really going to create a really nice sandwich. If you remember from last night, when that boudin is hot, it's creamy, it's almost dough-like. So as it warms up here and you give it that flip, You want to be a little on the gentle side because it is warming up and it does have a delicateness to it, if you will. But as long as you're easy on that flip and just sear them like that, don't move them around too much, you're going to be good to go. This needs about another 2 minutes on this side just to make sure they're hot and gets all crispy on the outside. If you wanted to put, I don't know, even cheese on this right now, that would be great, just like you would a burger. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to leave the cheese off. I'm going to really let these peppers sing and play with that boudin, but this is looking really good right now. And if you just touch this, you can kind of feel the crispiness of that rice. And I can't tell you how much different it is from eating in a casing and eating it like this, just because you really get to kind of expose that rice and those starches. Another great way to eat boudin is boudin balls, where I might just make a meatball-sized little roll of boudin, put it in flour, egg, and flour again, and deep fry them, and that's what we call boudin balls. And that's just the fried version of boudin. The duck camp where I hunt in Louisiana, we always buy boudin from the local groceries and butcher shops, and we take it out of the casing, do this every day. So I'm really sharing with y'all kind of like a secret of how we're cooking at the duck camp in Louisiana and how I'm bringing it to Meat Week here at Mossy Oak. Just make sure all these biscuits are cut all the way here. Boom. And this about ready to go. We're about ready to build some sandwiches here. All right. This is beautiful. Keep my tops with my tops. There you go. There we go. All right. All right. Yep. This is all good to go. Just kind of let them drain just a touch. Go right on that biscuit. All right. Now they'd be perfect like this. Right now, to the dome, eating them. Be delicious, but I just couldn't just live with myself if I just put the top back on. So we got these beautiful sweet pickled jalapeños. This is going to add heat, this is going to add acid, and this is going to add sweetness. This is really going to take that boudin biscuit to the next level. So I just want a few peppers on each one. You know, 5, 6, 7. Of course, if you love the taste of them, go ahead and put 7, 8, 10, 12, however you want. Make it nice. One little thing that I like to do, the reason why I only put 5 or 6 here, because I like to take this syrup, just really give that a drizzle over it. And this lacquer of pickling liquid, sweet pickling liquid, it just cascades over the boudin and the biscuit. That's going to be a bite to remember right here. All right, we think we can do that at home? Jean-Paul Bourgeois, and that's a boudin biscuit. Woo!